welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Back in August, Glock introduced the new Gen 5 series. The Gen 5 series is a complete redo of the pistol. Contrary to a lot of belief, it's not just a few modifications. In fact, pretty much everything in the pistol has been redesigned. Earlier this month, you saw the video on the biggest release of the new year, which is the Glock 19X. So the Glock 19X is a little bit different from the Gen 5. It was made specifically for the military contract, the XM17 program. But the Gen 5, when you look at it, it's a culmination of both the 19M FBI pistol as well as the MHS. It was technology that was used in both of those, which comes up with the Gen 5. Now, what we're seeing here is the Glock Gen 5 Model 17, which was released in August of 2017. And what you see here is the Model 34 Gen 5 and the Model 26 Gen 5. These two are just being released at SHOT Show. So you're getting a first look at these prior to their release at SHOT Show. So basically Glock has three new pistols this year. You have the 19X and you have the Gen 5 34 and Gen 5 26. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over the Gen 5. Even though I did a video on the Glock 17 Gen 5, we're going to assume that you didn't see that. We're going to go over the differences in what the Gen 5 has over the original model, the models Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, and Gen 4. All of those pretty much have the same components. They're the same pistol with modifications to the frame and so forth. Obviously, there's been modifications to the finish as well. So going over what the Gen 4 and Gen 5 differences are. On top here we have the model Gen 4. This is the one with front forward serrations on it, Gen 4, and we have a Gen 5. Looking on the outside, probably one of the biggest things we notice is the removal of the finger grooves. Now, this has been sort of controversial because some people like them and some didn't. Quite frankly, I like the finger grooves, but this is not a showstopper for me. I don't mind that whatsoever. We have the removable back straps here, which are removable by just popping this pin out and replacing. You can have them with or without the spur. The slide is also different for as far as what finish is used. There's a brand new NDLC finish that's on the slide and the barrel, which is a much more durable finish than's been put out in the past. So this is also an improvement. It has a little bit more of a shine to it. It's not nearly as flat as some of the earlier finishes. But the new finish has been tested and is proved superior for corrosion resistance. So externally, that's really what you're going to see. But another big deal is going to be this swell that's here. This eliminates what they call the Glock finger. This makes it a little bit more comfortable for you to be able to shoot. Now, the trigger itself is making a big difference as well. The trigger on the Gen 5 has definitely been improved. Forward, as you look at the muzzle, you're going to see how this has been tapered off. You'll see that's a difference as well. And another one of the major Gen 5 changes is what you see here. You have a ambidextrous slide release, or slide stop. Now, there's the actual Glock term is slide stop. This was never designed as a slide release. It was designed to be slingshotted like you would in 1911. But this is now ambidextrous. On the left side here, you'll see there's nothing really has changed here other than you can see the Gen 5. Now, you also have Austrian versus U.S., which we've talked about in a recent blog that I had done. Most of the Gen 5s I've seen so far are Austrian-made, but Glock USA is capable of manufacturing any pistol that's manufactured in Austria. So the next really big deal is going to be inside. For many of those who wish to believe that these guns are simply just slightly modified, that is totally untrue. Virtually everything on the inside has been redesigned. If you notice here in the slide, you will notice that there is a difference in the shape of the firing pin lock, which is different. Also, you'll notice a difference in the recoil springs. These are not compatible. Gen 4 and Gen 5 recoil springs are not compatible. You'll see this is a little bit larger. Of course, you see the finish as well. That's different between the two. So as you can see, the barrel and the recoil spring assembly have been redesigned. Now, the barrel, something else that we're going to discuss, has been changed. As you'll see from the pictures that we're inserting here, the Glock has a new barrel they refer to as the Glock marksmanship barrel. Now, it's a new barrel. It's for this generation, and what it is, it's different from the original because it is a hexagonal rifling profile rather than the polygon. And hexagon means 6 sides. Now, there is some very important misinformation that is out there at this point. They say that because it's hexagonal, you're able to fire lead ammunition. That is not true. This is still a shallow rifling process. You have some nice leading edges that are hammer forged with the mandrel into the barrel. It is still a shallow rifling polygon type rifle, or shallow type rifling. It does give you less bullet jump, as you'll also see from the pictures here, going from the cartridge into the bore. But again, I want to iterate. This is not safe to use lead in. It is still the same type of rifling. It's just hexagonal instead of the standard polygon or octagon. Again, I want to reiterate the fact that the new barrel on the Gen 5 is not to be used with lead. It is to be used with jacketed ammunition. You do still have the tighter bore to give you a tighter bore to bullet fit, slightly increasing accuracy and slightly increasing your pressures as well. Maintain a little bit higher pressures. The next thing we want to look at is magazines. Now, the magazines have been slightly changed as well. The first thing that you're going to see is the use of an orange follower. The magazine body itself is the exact same. The follower, the only difference is that it's orange instead of black. Another difference is the floor plates. If you notice, this one's a little more, the standard Glock magazine has more of a squared off plate. This one here is more on an angle. It's a little more, it's more aesthetically pleasing, and it's also a little bit better feeling by having this little swell on here. So those are the major changes in the magazine. Again, the floor plate and the follower. Now, for those of you who do like these changes, you can go on Brownells and you can get just the new follower and the new floor plate. You can buy those parts so you can convert your older magazines to the new configuration. Now that's when we're going to see some major differences right here. We have the Gen 5 and the Gen 4. Going from the front, you will definitely see that we have a new mold. The frame has been totally redesigned. Moving forward, you will see that you have on the Gen 3, you have a third pin, or the first pin as we call it. This is a one pin. It does not need the first pin. So again, a one pin design. If you also look at the slide stop, you have a leaf spring in here. This has been changed to a coil spring. It's more durable, more reliable. Locking block, of course, has been changed. Now, as you can see here, you have your magazine slide stop. As you can see here, this is a larger one piece, which is going to have the ability to have the ambidextrous. It's been totally redesigned. Your cruciform has been redesigned, as you can see, and you can see the difference in the trigger insert as well. You'll see changes into the mold. And also, more importantly, you'll see in the Gen 3, Gen 4s, and Gen 1s, Gen 2s, your trigger return spring is a coil spring in the rear. You can see that right here. This has been changed to the front. This is also going to be an enhancement for reliability and also going to increase the life of the spring, the way that it's been changed in there. So you can see that everything has been redesigned. None of the parts that you see on here other than the magazine release are interchangeable. So the Gen 5 is a completely new, it's a new pistol. New pistol, new parts. And what some of these changes do, they do increase the quality of your trigger. Now, the original Glock trigger I never had much of a problem with because this is a combat pistol. This is not a precision 1911 type action pistol. It's designed as a combat pistol, and for me, it always was just fine. But you can always do better. And Glock always tries to answer the customer's call of making things better. For those of you who wanted a little bit better of a trigger, this does offer that to you. And I will also say to increase your trigger, to make it smoother, you also want to, when you do some lubricant, you want to place some lubricant on your connector here, because that'll give you some lubricant in between the surfaces of the trigger bar and the connector, make it a little bit smoother. So those are the main changes between the Gen 3s, Gen 4s, and to the Gen 5s. As you can see, parts are not compatible. Everything has been redesigned. It's not just a simple, we're just going to throw one or two new changes in here and call it a Gen 5. The pistol has been redesigned. So this brings us to our new products. So the G17 Gen 5 was released in, I believe, August of 2017. So new for 2018 January is going to be the Model 34 and the 26. The 34 has been a very popular pistol for competitive shooters who utilize Glock pistols. The changes you saw on the Gen 5 17, all the exact same things, but with the addition of a couple. First off, you have the MBS slide system, where you have the ability to remove this plate and to install a tactical sight. This is a Model 4145 Auto Gen 4 that I have here, which has the sight attached to it. So by removing this plate, you have the ability to install a a holographic sight. This particular one here is the Trichicon RMO8. So the Model 34 Gen 5 has the MBS system. Now the MBS system, what that enables you to do is to remove this plate from the top and insert a holographic sight, as you can see here. This is my Model Gen 4, Model 41, that I have this sight attached to. So you can see what we have here. And the other thing I have on here is what's referred to as the Ameriglo sights. Now Glock purchased the rights to this particular sight. So as you can see, you have a Trigicon sight. These are all tritium lamps in the front and rear, but you also have an orange ring around here as well. And during daylight hours, that stands out quite a bit. I'm really fond of this sight. When you pull it out, it's a really quick sight acquisition. It's much more so than any other Glock sights that are out there. I have a feeling from now on, any Glock sight purchaser will have this Ameriglo sight on it. But you can see that orange right there. Now, these can be available in steel sights. They can be available in the Ameriglo. You can get them into the standard plastic sights. The plastic sights is something else I want to address. A lot of people complain because Glocks come with the plastic sights on them. Now, it's very much like the AR market, where with an AR-15, you have companies like Colt who provide you with a basic M4. They don't provide you with the free-floating handguards or the new, anything. It's all standard military M4. And why do they do that? Because they know the first thing you're going to do when you get that rifle home is you're going to have your own handguard that you like. You're going to have your own pistol grip, your own type of rear sight. There's no way that they could manufacture that rifle the same way that everybody would want it. Well, it's the same thing with Glock. Glock assumes that if they put a plastic sight on there that you're going to go ahead and order something else, that you're going to get some other kind of a higher profile sight or some other sight that you prefer. Now, when you buy these guns with the Ameriglo or a steel sight or a night sight, they know that's what you're going to be leaving on them. So that's why the basic Glock comes generally with plastic sights and these other ones that you can buy with these specialized sights. Again, this is the competition Glock, so you got a 5.31 inch barrel versus the 4.5 inch barrel on the standard model. Everything else is basically the same as any other pistol. In the Gen 5 line, you have the same trigger mechanism, you have the same magazine. Now, the Gen 5 pistols will take every magazine that Glock has produced. Any generation from the 1 through the 5 will work in these pistols. If you have a current Model 17 from any of those eras, all your magazines will be compatible. Next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the magazines that were tested in these pistols. I had 3 different magazines that were tested in these pistols. We have the standard G17 magazine. This one here probably would be, I would say, around a Gen 4 based off of the configuration of it. We also have the Magpul PMag, which the Magpul PMag already had the orange follower. And we also have the ETS, which I'm pretty fond of these too because I like the translucent magazines. And they're making them translucent and they're making them durable as hell, so you can see your rounds inside of them. All 3 of these are available through Brownells, these different models. The Gen 5 magazines, complete Gen 5 magazines, I am not sure when they're going to be available. The parts are available through Brownells, but the magazines as of now are not yet. Next pistol we're going to talk about is the G26. Now, as you know, the G26 is their mini version. It's their subcompact version. So you have a much shorter grip and a much shorter barrel. If you notice, this still has the Ameriglo sights on them, and I am very glad I ordered them with these sights on them because for this small compact carry pistol, this is an awesome setup for having the higher profile front sight in the daytime. Now, for me, I have great difficulty shooting this pistol because, as you see, I have very large hands, and I lose an entire finger on the bottom here. I do have coming from Glock a +2 extension, which will give me something to grab a hold on. That's going to make this pistol shooting a lot easier. So when I test fired this pistol for the first time at Glock, I have a hard time with it just sliding off my finger. Again, size Sasquatch hands with something so small. I prefer the G19 over this for that reason, is because I do have difficulty with the smaller one. Now, I do believe getting the +2 magazine extension will make that different. So I have a couple of those coming from Glock right now, and we'll see if that makes a difference. But all the same things. You have ambi, you have Ameriglo sights, you have an improved magazine as well. Looking at the magazine, you do have the enhanced orange follower, but you have the standard base plate. That's due to the fact you have a lip that comes down here, and the new base plate will not fit into that little groove right there. Like the 19X also has this lip on here, which makes so you cannot use the Gen 5 magazines with that floor plate in that gun. So this gun here, as well as the 19X, will not be utilizing the new floor plate. but it will be utilizing the new magazine follower. And due to the fact we've gone over the Gen 5, every change that you have on the Gen 5 is also in this pistol as well. So we could have the opportunity, there's maybe 13 of us in the industry, to go to Glock prior to the release in October, or January 2nd. And we got a chance to go shoot the 19X, the Gen 5, 26 and 34. Impressions were, I like Glock pistols. There's no question about that. You guys often call me a Glock fanboy. We all have favorites. I don't care who you are, whether you're somebody who's in the industry or whether you're somebody like me who does evaluations of pistols. We all have favorite pistols. And Glock sure happen to be on my side. So, I do get a little bit more excited when I see the new Glocks and new guns coming out of there because that's what I carry. So I was very pleased to see the changes. The 19X blew me away. It really did. The 19X, a lot of you guys who've been on my channel and who made comments say, it was a mistake. They did this wrong, that wrong. You need to understand this was not designed as a compact carry pistol. This was designed as per a military specification. So the pistol that you see there is exactly what the U.S. military wanted. And what Glock's doing is they're offering the version that they designed to the commercial market, as this is our modular handgun system that we submitted to the military. For as far as people saying that they were trying to recoup their money in R&D, no. The gun that you see right there, it was a combination of a couple pistols. This was not a fortune for them to redesign. As I previously stated, the Gen 5 pistol as it was released was a culmination of lessons learned from both the FBI program with the 19M and 17M, as well as the XM17, or their modular handgun system. So you have the Glock standard product line, which has the improvements in the trigger mechanism, has the improvements in the Glock's marksmanship barrel. Those are all what you see here as the standard product line going to all those changes. The 19X was specifically the military pistol. That was not Glock saying this is what we're going to do. That was the specifications that were put out by the military of what they wanted. So anybody who has any critiques of that pistol, you have to understand that was not Glock coming up with a new product. That was Glock answering a request for a product or a request from the U.S. government. So while we were at Glock USA, we had some interesting opportunities, the ones of us who were permitted to go down there. First off, it was to get a first look at these pistols. And we were also fortunate in the fact that they sent these pistols to us immediately after, so we could do a evaluation. And then we had a quarantine date, which was January 2nd, when we could release. We had to wait until Glock had their official announcement of the release of these pistols before we could put our videos up. So that was really cool. Shooting at the guns at the range, we had a lot of rounds through these things, and they worked awesome. There was no issues with any of the models. But I got to say, the 19X is what took the show. It really was. For Glock right now with the Gen 5, so as far as what they're releasing, right now there's been people are reverting from the 40s and the 45s back to 9mm. You're seeing law enforcement agencies going back to 9mm. So the biggest demand Glock has right now is for the 9mm pistols, which is why you see the first releases of the Gen 5, the model 17, 34, and 26. So Glock has not released a schedule as to what the next versions are going to be, 40, 45. They have not released that yet. So we don't know what's coming up next, but the reason you're seeing the 9mm first is because that's where their market is right now. That's what they're being asked for. Another interesting thing that we saw was the Glock factory itself. And I did a little bit of a write-up on that on a blog, but I'm going to give you a few snippets from that. I've never been to the Glock factory in Austria or the one in the U.S. There are some companies that really like to keep what they do pretty secret. But they permitted us to go through the factory and to be able to see what goes on in there. We weren't allowed to take pictures, which was pretty common. There's very few manufacturers that allow photographs to be taken inside their factories. But I learned some really, really interesting things. First off was Glock USA guns versus Glock Austrian guns. What's the difference? And the reality was absolutely nothing. The only components that are made in the USA are the frames, slides, and barrels. And those frames, slides, and barrels are made from materials that come from Austria. Nothing is purchased here in the U.S. In fact, every part on these pistols is manufactured by Glock in Austria. For as far as the springs, trigger bars, all the components. Glock maintains 100% control over all of the components for their quality control, for their manufacturing. So when the machines are here in the U.S. are all from Austria. They're set up by the Austrians at Glock, In fact, even the floors are the same 6-foot thick concrete that they are in Austria. The current that's utilized in the Glock USA plant is actually European current, not American current, because the machines are all Austrian. So all the machines, the hammer forged machines for the barrels, are the exact same machines used in Austria, programmed by the exact same people. All materials, whether it being polymer for the frames, all that it comes from Austria as well. It's all shipped in. So there's no parts procurement or material procurement in the U.S. for Glock pistols. It is all maintained and controlled and shipped in from Austria. All the bar stock for the barrels, all the bar stock for the slides, the beads for the polymer molding machines. So that was very, very interesting. All pistols are test fired with 5 rounds, 2 rounds of high pressure and 3 rounds of standard ball ammunition, which is unusual. Usually most manufacturers only do 1 proof load, not 2. So they're inspected twice, first before firing and second after firing. Oddly enough, as simple as this pistol is, there's a lot of fixtures in the assembly, which is really neat. And that gray grease or that copper colored grease that you see, there's actually a machine that goes into each slide and puts that grease in the slide all the way around. It's pretty interesting. But the biggest things that I walked away from there with was the fact that everything is made on Austrian machines with Austrian control over everything from Glock and Deutsch. The U.S. factory can manufacture any of the pistols in the Glock lineup. They have about 25% of the production capability of Glock Austria, so they're significantly smaller. Initially, a lot of the pistols that were manufactured in the U.S. were for export use due to the fact there are some countries that Austria will not export to, and the U.S. will allow, and so forth. So a lot of those pistols that were manufactured in the U.S. Do have export. Now, as the guns come in, the Austrian versus the U.S., the guns come in from Austria. A majority of the guns that are shipped are Austrian made. They come in a parts kit and they're assembled in the U.S. The Glock USA, again, the frame, slide, and barrel manufactured in the U.S., and then the rest of the parts are Austrian. The difference is there's no difference. Everything is the same finishes. The finishes and the heat treating is all done in-house at Glock USA or Glock Austria. So the degree of control really makes a difference in the quality of a firearm. If you look at a lot of American manufacturers, what you have is you have a factory who manufactures X amount of components. They'll send it out for heat treating. They'll send it out to be finished. They'll farm out certain parts like firing pins and small screws and springs. They don't manufacture everything in-house, which also means they don't inspect everything, and you don't have the degree of quality control when everything is made in-house. So Glock is rather unique in the fact that they manufacture every single component in-house. That also is probably what leads to their legendary reliability, is because they do maintain all that control. As I said, at the factory, we were able to test fire these guns. It was limited. Probably the gun that I put the most rounds through was the 19X, which is probably at least 200 rounds. The pistols that you see here, at the factory, I probably put maybe 50 or 75 rounds through each. But then once I got the pistols sent to me, we were able to go out and put a minimum of 500 through both of these pistols here. And, like typical Glocks, there was no malfunctions. I was using Black Hills ball ammunition, 115 grain, also some 124 grain ammunition I had as well. I do want to address something about the Glock Summit, though. I had a rather negative comment that was left for me on the 19X video from somebody saying that that the people who were at the Glock Summit were given a check for endorsement and so forth. That is not the case at all. The people who were invited in the Glock Summit were some of the more respected people that Glock respects more, their opinions of the guns, to go to get their opinions of these pistols. There is no checks. There's no free guns. This is a first look for a select group of people. Every manufacturer does this. They have certain people that they do invite in to see the newer products. So I want to address that right now. There is no checks. There is no paid endorsements. There is nothing. This is a very unique opportunity for Glock to have people that they trust. We have to sign NDAs on all this stuff as well, the stuff that we see, and that we will not release information prior to the release. This is it's a select group that this company has, as well as other companies do the same things. I want to cut that out right now. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to show you some different footage. We're going to show you the test firing footage that I have from being a Glock professional. And then we're going to go into some range footage from me shooting here in Texas at my range. And So, you know, I don't film every single shot that I take. I generally have quite a bit of shooting in these guns prior to them being filmed. So you may see, 3 magazines being fired or 10 magazines being fired. That's nowhere near as much as I fire through them. So I wanted to say that because it's something else people have addressed as well. How can you tell me with 3 magazines or whatever, what kind of gun this is? That's not the case. I generally fire roughly 500 plus rounds through a gun. I have guns I fire a lot more as well. So let's take a look at some of this footage at the range, and we'll see how they shoot. As you see, the Gen 5 pistol, I've gone over all the changes. You can see that it is not the same pistol. You'll see that it's new. You'll see a lot of improvements. Glock does continue to improve. That's why you have the Gens 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5. And you'll probably see a Gen 6, a Gen 7 over the years. It's usually every few years, 3 to 5 years or so, Glock will come out with a new generation with enhancements. So it's like any manufacturer, firearms manufacturer, or anybody who manufactures anything, that you do constantly upgrade your pistols or upgrade your products. So you will see that, I'm sure, coming down the pike. As I previously stated, for as far as what's next, I don't know. Glock hasn't said what the next caliber will be. As I said, right now they're going after the 9mm market because that's what they're being asked for law enforcement, for military. So that's why you see this natural progression from the 17 to the 34 to the 26. I know myself, I would like to see the 45 come back next, to be the next ones to come out. But I don't know. That's what my hope would be. So I hope you guys liked this discussion on the Gen 5 and a little bit of the background into the factory as well. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment, and I'll try to answer these questions. If you enjoyed this, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.